Hello and welcome to the Inky Raven. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about shading different forms. So our 5 basic forms are cubes, cylinders, spheres, pyramids, and cones. So today we're going to start out with drawing cubes, and actually we're going to be shading these with watercolor. So to start out with, and I'm just going to block these in, I'm not going to worry too much about actually making sure that they're correct with a ruler, although if you're doing something precise, you're of course more than welcome to. So to start out with, I'm going to do this from 5 different angles so that we get a wide variety. So there is box number 1. And I'm actually going to vary these up a little bit, and I'm going to shade each one of these from a different light source. So box number 2. Box number 3, kind of going to do a from above versus the front 2, or the first 2 are front 1. I'm going to make one more. It's kind of going to be a side angle there. And so for number 5, let's see. And make it kind of a little bit of a steeper angle from the front. Alright, so as I said, this one we're kind of worried, or I'm worried more about the process of the shading versus the actual construction of the boxes. But so when we talk about light sources, you kind of want to make sure you have a highlight, a shadow, and a drop shadow. So this is all light sources create these. So these are kind of the things that we're going to be really looking for. So what I'm going to do with drawing a light source is kind of like draw a little sun type thing, and with the little marks showing me what direction the light is coming onto the box. So this box here, I'm going to actually put a very low light source here. So this one's kind of going to be lit from like it's like sitting on top of a table and being lit from like below. And this one here, we'll kind of do the opposite. So again, this one's going to come kind of from the top. This one here, I think we'll light from directly overhead. This one, how about a very sharp up front? And this one, so we're actually looking at it from above, can be lit from here. So I've got my light sources kind of mapped out. So let's go ahead and roughly draw in the drop shadows. So if this is being lit from kind of like the side here, and it's going to cross over into my light source markings for the other one, but that's okay. So this one will kind of fan out. So your shadow is going to be almost directly opposite from your light source. So this one here, and you could actually like make them box shaped, or you could just leave them a little bit fuzzy, depending on how harsh your light is. So this one from above, if it's made at a very sharp angle, it's almost just going to create a second kind of box-like layer in there. So this one from above kind of back a little bit. So this one might flare out a little bit like that. And this one will kind of go like that. So as I said, we are going to shade these with watercolors. So I'm going to get everything ready and be right back. Alright, so when you start out with using watercolor to do shading, essentially you want to make sure that you pay attention to where you want your highlight to be and not paint there. And then you gradually want to make things darker. So to start with, I'm going to start with this box here. So I am going to, now you can do this a couple different ways, so I'll kind of do some of these differently. So you might want to make sure you've got a good bit of water and not a whole lot of pigment to start out with. So you can kind of, see, to me that's a little dark for this one. So what I'm going to actually do is go back in with some extra water and kind of blend it out some, so by the time that dries it will actually lighten up a good bit. So essentially your lightest side will be what's kind of facing or your light source essentially. So this area over here is obviously going to be my darkest, and the top's going to kind of be a middle in between. So I'm going to go ahead and load up a pretty saturated bit on my brush. So it's got a lot of pigment to it, a little bit of water to go ahead and fill in that shadow. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of water to it to do this top part. So both of these would actually be fairly dark, although the top might be just a little bit lighter. I'm just going to kind of take where I went over a little bit. I'm going to get a little bit of just clean water on my brush and kind of fan that out to kind of make that look a little better. Alright, so now for this one, since I've made the whole box kind of orange, I can actually go back in with like a black or a brown to do that shadow. So that's really gonna kind of make it pop off the paper. So again, you can be super precise with shadows, you can be a little bit hazy with them. It's kind of up to you. And you could also fan this out with some, adding some water to it so that it looks a little bit nicer too. And so mostly going to cover just the basics, and then as you kind of do these more, you can kind of get more into it. So this one here is the one that I'm going to do next. So I'm kind of going to view this as it's basically going to hit this hidden side here, and so the top is going to be the lightest. And so I'm also going to do this one in the orange color as well. So this one actually, I'm going to lay down the paint a little bit differently. And so all of these, there's no right or wrong way to do this, just kind of whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm actually going to do kind of like a wet wash. And just kind of add the color in there. So it did get a little more saturated than I per se wanted, but that's okay. We'll just do this one a different way. So since that one is already so dark, what I'm going to do for the other two sides then is just go ahead and paint them kind of the same shade. So that it does kind of look a bit more uniform. And so actually, for this one, I'm going to go ahead and make the shadow kind of like an orange and a brown. And then I think we'll let this box dry a little bit. So grabbing some brown. And you can kind of fan it out down through there so that the brown isn't super overpowering. I think I'll add a bit stronger right up towards the top. So this is kind of working and blending while wet, so kind of mixing, fading the colors kind of into each other. Alright, so this one here was being lit from above, even though we covered up some of those lines. So what I'm going to do for it is grab a good bit of water, a little bit of pigment, and I'm not going to start on the top this time. So I'm just going to kind of go in and do the two far sides. Then just grab some more water and kind of do the top, just that slight bit of orange. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to make this side a lot darker. And then kind of fan it up on the back side here. this one, as far as the shadow goes, I think I'll just stick with a just actual brown for this one, just to give some nice contrast. And kind of just fanning it out a bit. So it's got like a rough outline to it. And again, we'll come back to that one. So this one here, we're kind of lighting from above. So this side probably will be a little bit lighter, even though it's not the side getting the most sunlight. So for it, I'm actually going to kind of fan that out a bit, and then I'll come back and kind of blend that when it's dry. So that we've got some dry blending going on. And for this one, I think I'm going to do the shadow orange again as well. So for this last one here, so I'm kind of viewing this as it's coming down from above, or your light source is directly above and you're looking at it from above. So this top here is going to be extremely light. So I've already got a good bit of just water on the brush. And just kind of fill that in a little bit, and I'm going to go back in with a little bit of orange and just kind of spot this color corner over here and just kind of fan that out a little bit so we've got the nice kind of soft-ish blend. Alright, and so for the sides, I'm going to go back in with a more saturated orange. And then the bottom there, we'll do a black shadow. So it has like a super really harsh lighting to it. Alright, so now that we've had a bit of a chance for these to dry, I'm going to go back into this one first. And so generally when, if you get into a lot of color theory, generally your shadows won't actually be a stark black. They will be more like a brownish, and so generally you want to take the complementary color. So for this, I'm actually going to go in with a blue, and I'm going to want to make sure this is watered down a good bit so that it's not too overwhelming to start with. And so I'm just going to go back in and kind of lay that blue wash directly over top of it. So you do want to be careful and not like overwork your paper, because that'll cause it to start kind of tearing. Mine is starting to buckle a little bit, but it will be okay. Because this is kind of just a demo, and it's not really, it's more of a practicing skills versus like making sure that it's like a top-notch artwork. Alright, so you can see that it's a little bit more muddied there. I'm going to go ahead and add a bit more blue to it. So this side would be probably a little bit darker. And actually we're going to just go ahead and add that to both sides, and then we'll add even more blue to the other side. And so you've got a darkened orange box. So for this one here, kind of gonna do the same thing. So I'll start out with like that medium color. I'm going to do this one in more of a dry brush and kind of not, kind of blend it down so that this top corner is a little bit darker. So you can do that on just one side. Because this would be kind of the furthest away from the light source. And you could even kind of just bring in some other colors as well. And kind of just make this one a little bit more of a reddish to kind of really make it pop. So you can kind of blend colors. You're not just limited to what's directly in your box per se. And actually I will add a bit of blue to that to kind of cancel out the red a bit. Alright, so this one here is going to go back in and blend it once it had dried. So I've got just kind of water on my brush and just kind of lightly scrubbing those edges to fan the color back out. And kind of blending it so it is a lighter. And for this one, I'm going to add kind of the blue to the shadow there. And we'll add just a little bit of blue to this side as well. So I feel like it's blending into the shadow a little bit, so I'll go in and kind of make that shadow directly against the box a little bit darker. And then just kind of dry brush it out. Alright, so very simply, that is kind of 5 different viewpoints and different ways to shade a cube. All in all, it's just kind of practicing with it, kind of seeing what works, what doesn't. Again, it's kind of just practicing and seeing, like, it also makes a difference if you do actually like take a cube and like sit it here, which I currently don't have. But so shading cubes. Alright guys, stay safe, have fun, make some stuff.